Good morning and welcome to Indigenous Roots and Hoots, a podcast produced by the Legacy of Hope Foundation. I'm your host, Gordon Spence, and today our guest is Richard Kistabish. Mr. Kistabish is from the Abitibiwini First Nation in Quebec. He speaks English, French, and Algonquin fluently. He is the former president of the Social Services Minukin and has been involved in the field of health and social services at the regional and provincial levels for many years. He served as an administrator and manager of the health committee at the Kistabish First Nation. Did I pronounce that right? Kistabish or something
Almost.
like that? Yeah, okay. In addition, he was the chief of his community and the Grand Chief of the Algonquin Council of Quebec for 2 terms. Mr. Kistabish has been published in the Mental Health and Aboriginal People of Quebec, the Green Book position paper of the Algonquin Nation on environmental issues, and the National Inquiry into First Nation Child Care. Mr. Kistabish spoke at the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. Mr. Kistabish was the vice chair of the Aboriginal Healing Foundation and is currently the president of the Legacy of Hope Foundation. He has served the Legacy of Hope Foundation's board of directors since 2002. He is currently the president. Welcome, Mr. Kistabish. Maybe you can just tell us a bit about who you are and where you come from, including your community, your family background, where you were born, that kind of stuff. We'll start with that. Go ahead.
Okay. At the beginning, my name was Ejinagosi. That was the name that I received as a baby and as a kid. So I grew up with that name until when I was 6 years old. When I was 6 years old, I've been at the residential school for 10 years. I learned French in that school, but also I have learned how to lie, how to hate. They are very bad for my family. I almost born on a train in Lachuk. My mom was 7 months pregnant when I decided to come to this world. So we stopped at the Lachuk hospital on the way by train, And since it was the fall, the season, autumn season, my father was so hurried and worried about the freeze up that's happening, because our territory is at the north. So the timing, October 19, was really bad to come to give birth to kids, because it's the season that you have to be on a territory. So after 3 days in that hospital, they decided to leave the hospital and to catch the train and to go to Abitibi. That's why I was baptized. In order for my parents to be let go at the hospital, they need to baptize the kid, me. So they gave me the name of the pilot that's supposed to fly in. His name was Richard.
Okay.
So when the baptized things happen, they call me Richard Kistabish. I didn't know that name until I get to the residential school. I don't know who was Richard Kistabish until I was at the residential school.
Mm-hmm.
So they stole my name. That's the first thing they did. It stole my name. I don't respond to people who call me Richard. When I was young, I didn't know it was my name. So for the first 6 years of my life, I was raised beside the river where our camp was. We were a small gang of people. My father was the leader of that group. I had their uncles and aunties and grandma and grandpa and many dogs and all these things that happen in a camp. I was there for 6 years. So I saw and I learned everything that I should know at that age. And then suddenly, just like that, boom, no more. No more, no more dad, no more mom, no more dogs, no more aunties, no more the family. Gone. I didn't understand that. I it was a an absolute and a nowhere when I was at that residential school. It was very painful not to know why, not to know where, not to understand what's happening. It's a very dark part of my life. I was lost for a long time because I didn't know anything about life outside of the residential school. Yes, it happens from time to time that I see my parents once in a while, for not very long period, a month, 2 months at the most. And we are not able to communicate the situation that I was. So we just trying to survive. We just try to cope with the situation. And then at last, I guess I get used to that kind of thing. But during that period of time, 10 years in residential school, I learned lots of bad things, bad things to do, to be a bad person, to be sometimes very mean. It is awful when you get out of that system, when you get out of the school. Only thing that you have is hate. You have no respect for your parents. You have no respect for anyone. And that was the first years of my life. It was sad for a long time until my dad take over my education. He started to tell me about stories, lots of stories that I learned from my dad, from my mom, from these things. And when we are Indians at the beginning, we are. And then I find out when I was chief that we are a First Nation called Abitibiwini. When I was a chief, the name of my band was Abitibi Dominion. It doesn't mean anything for us, Abitibi Dominion. So when I was a chief, the first thing that I did was to change the name of my community. And we call ourselves Abitibiwini because that's the territory that we are using to live. We know everything on that land.
Mm-hmm.
So our name is Abitibiwini. We've been called that name when we visit some other First Nations in the region.
Yeah.
We are Abitibiwini. It evolves, you know. It evolves. It's the return to our culture, to return to our identity, to return to our roots. Other people, the white people mainly, call us savages, Amérindiens, Algonquin, and autochthone, indigenous. These are names for designating ignorance. Our way of calling people, native people, we call them Anishinaabe. We all Anishinaabe, but we use First Nation these years. But for me, it's Anishinaabe. It's very, very close to have a big, big family, a big family, a large one. We have other Anishinaabe, like the Cree people of the north, the Anishinaabe from the west, from the east. We call Atikamek. From the south, we have Iroquois. We call them Nadwe. And on the west side, we have Ojibways. All these people are Anishinaabe,
Wow.
but they have their own identity, their own culture, their own spirituality, their own ritual, their own ceremony. Every one of them have their own. That's what they make the differences between us. So my goal, the things that I do now is to promote the right names of the people that occupy this land. We call it ourselves Anishinaabe. We started to educate our First Nation by having the name Anishinaabe. When I'm walking on the street here in Val-d'Or, and when I meet some First Nation people, they always say, Kwe Anishinaabe. This is the territory of the Anishinaabe. So I am Anishinaabe because of the big family, but I am a bit Tibiwini because of the land that I occupy. It is a matter of identity. It's really important to have that in order to know exactly who you are and where we are going and how we're going to be, how we're going to develop our culture, our language, how to preserve our language. It's really important to know that the origin of our existence. Sometimes I ask the question, how our language was born. I try to answer to that. And I think the answer is somewhere in the land. The animals that walk, that flies, that swim, the trees, all these live things, I think they were the origin of our language. I strongly believe that. And we are a very long step to find the right way to use it, to teach that to our kids. And I am very hopeful that we're going to be successful if we have all the resources that we need to do this trip, this exercise, the process that we are going in. We're going to need much more resources to acquire back, to reappropriate the things that they have been stolen from us.
Right.
And we can start easy, small things, like our names.
Mhm.
My name is Ejinagosi. I was called like that at the beginning. So we must return to that root and be able to identify really and to work our identity. This way you're going to acquire dignity, you're going to acquire to be proud, and you're going to be magnificent at the end if you know exactly where you're coming from.
I understand exactly what you're talking about because I see a kind of a wave happening across this country. We've been through a lot. Aboriginal people in this country have been through a lot over the last several hundred years, with the residential schools and the incarceration rates. Incarceration, the jails our young people, our people have gone into, and the children being taken away from homes. All that kind of stuff, the missing and murdered women and the 60 scoop, all that has had a tremendous impact on our lives. But now lately I've seen kind of a revolution, a silent, quiet revolution, change happening for the betterment of our people. And people are starting to do things that you're talking about, like changing their names back to the original names, and people going back to the land and spending more time with the land and recognizing the fact that they need to speak their language and restore their languages. So I think what you're saying is absolutely true. And it's very interesting that you connect all that to, the animals, the trees. That is so amazing, Richard. And I think that's quite unique, and unique perspective, and I really admire your views on that. Tell us about, maybe you talk a little bit about what you're doing now and how is that going?
I guess my involvement in the wellness, in the healing, this is a lifetime process. Healing to get to wellness. It's a lifetime process because of the terrible things that happen to us. It's going to be very difficult for some people to trying to maintain, a kind of momentum to get the healing in order to obtain the wellness. And the only thing that I know so far that is very good is it's the culture and the language. These are the most important section or values that we have to promote. The things that happen regarding our culture and our language, it started long time ago to erase this thing called culture, because culture was viewed by the authorities as a bad influence to our life. So they have to get starting to erase the consciousness of the culture in our head. They have to erase the language quietly, smoothly, in order to disappear, at the end. I'm very amazed the past 2 years, to see the situation of the language in this country. I attend the language conference in Victoria last year. There was a shocking surprises for me to know that the people of British Columbia, especially on that island, that they have only 3 to 5% of the First Nation who speak fluently their language. Here in Quebec, we have the Atikamekw and the Innu. They have 95% they were able to keep 95% fluency in this province, in Quebec. The Cree has over 90% fluency people. Anishinaabe, we are losing ground on this. I think I could say, to be very generous of the situation, I think they will still have 35% to 40% that we're still fluent in the Anishinaabe language.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is absurd. To have 95% fluently in Atikamek or in Innu here in Quebec, and only 3% right at the other end of this country.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. I talked to some people over there when I was attending this conference, and they were, I guess, they just let it go for a long time during the 1930s, 40s, 60s, and 50s. They stopped using their language, and then they lose it in the process. That's the only explanation that I have after talking to a person over there, explaining to me that when she was young, she was able to speak the language, but when she was 60, they don't remember a word of that. I guess we should have some kind of project to travel across the country and to study the fluency of the languages that they are left, and try to understand how come these kind of situations happen in that way. How come British Columbia is losing? They have only 3 to 5% of their language fluency, and I've been really shocked to find out that. So that's what I'm doing here. I developed an organization with some other people in order to promote culture, to find some people that they are very good at the art, painting, sculpting, making moccasins, making sweaters, to be a designers, create more of Dorothy Grant in this land. Yeah, that's the thing I'm trying to create, to have people to elevate their work. We have magnificent, talented people here. They are very talented in sculpture, talented in sewing, designing, drawing, teaching. These people need to more support in order to practice their capacity, their abilities, in order to transmit the culture to the other people, and also to create these magnificent pictures and designing to expose them to the society, to have these kind of things to expose them, to make public aware that we still have our creators here. They have magnificent musicians here. Also. So this is what I do these days. I'm kind of busy with that thing.
That's quite interesting that you go in that direction, and you're also, you've been involved in the language restoration, and now you're also working on the arts and performance arts of your people, and trying to promote that and get that, more more of your people involved. And I think we have a lot of people that are just naturally talented in the arts. Part of what we do at the Legacy of Hope Foundation is educating and promoting a greater understanding about Aboriginal culture and reconciliation. Can you talk a bit about your work as president of the Legacy of Hope Foundation? How did it start and why was it created?
When the Aboriginal Healing Foundation was created and put in place, we had our first meeting of member of the boards, and we have a big, huge gathering that happened in British Columbia on the Squamish territory. We sat there for 5 days in order to have discussions with survivors, residential school survivors at that meeting. We were about 500 people that attend that conference. So we discussed about how we're going to spend that money that the federal government that was giving us, 350 million. At that time, I was very naive to see that 350 million, it's big money. But that was only small, a pocket change that I could say about the money because of the huge needs of the communities about healing. The first year after we call up projects, we were over $1 billion of requests for projects, and we have only 350 million to spend in 7 years. That was the first shock that I had at that time. So after the 5 days that we've been having the meeting, we made some decisions also during that period of time. But there was this woman. I always remember that image. We were the 17 board members sitting on the top stage there in the big hall, 400 people in front. And there was this woman. She stand up there and they come to us, to the board, to the table, and they give us $100. He gave it to George. She says, after you spend the money, here's my share to carry on the healing. So George took the money, and we didn't know how we're going to use it. So the idea of creating a charitable organization was born. And that $100 was the first money that we've been having, and we create the Legacy of Hope Foundation. I was not part of the first group. No, I was nominated after 2 years in there.
Yeah.
And, 50 million a year, it's a lot of money to healing. And it was not feasible for the Legacy of Hope to gather 50 million each year. Mm-hmm. After that foundation when been spending all the money. So as president, I decided that we cannot carry on the healing mission that the Aboriginal Healing Foundation has. We cannot. It's too much. It is too much money involved in there. The thing that we should do is to educate people. Educate our kids, educate our community, educate all the First Nation in Canada, but also, very important, we have to educate the population at large. We have to educate Canada about residential school. That's the thing we should do. we're going to be gathering all the stories, because there is not much of the documentation available to the government. We see that when the Rail Commission they gathered only few documentation to explain and to explore the residential school issue. But that was the big thing in our community. It was the residential school. It was needed to be told. It was needed to be educated. We needed to go all over the places and to have witnesses to be recorded and to gather all those stories and creating awareness among the Canadian population about the residential school. It is a very a tough job to do that. We were lucky at the Legacy of Hope Foundation at the beginning to have so much passionate people to do this job, recording a story of a survivor, it's a painful thing to do, very painful. But we did it. We have over 600 stories at the Legacy Foundation, and we were lucky too to have the Truth and Reconciliation Commission also to take over after. I think we have over 3,000 stories of survivors, the witnesses of what happened in residential school. Terrible things that happen. Why some people are so desperate. All the explanation are being told in those stories. Telling those stories, it is to say to the people who we are. So it is important to record these things and to expose these stories, to make studies about the stories, to make it public. I know most of the stories that we recorded, it's a shame. We are ashamed of the things that happened to us. We are not particularly proud of that. I never told my story to my kids, but the technology helped me to tell my story to my kids. Mm-hmm. I don't have to say it directly, so I use a machine like that to tell my story to my kids, because it's so hard to tell these things. You feel all the shame, the humiliation that you've been get through. It's not easy. It's not easy. So stories has to be recorded, and then these stories are going to be very useful in 7 generations from now. To understand the things that happen to us, the things that happen to our parents, our grandparents, and it's going to be very useful at that time. I'm sure of that.
I didn't realize it was until I started working for the Legacy of Hope Foundation. I hadn't realized, being a survivor myself, I didn't realize that this went on for over 100 years, close to 200 years, over 100 years. I didn't realize that until I started working at the Legacy of Hope Foundation. And I was astounded at, the numbers of people that died while in residential school. All these children, thousands of them, passed away while they were in care. This marks the 20th anniversary of the Legacy of Hope Foundation, and we're hoping to do something special. I don't know exact details. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how does it feel 20 years old now, Legacy Hope Foundation. How does that feel?
I guess I'm proud of the things that we've done, small things. We did some little things,
Yeah,
to educate because it's an issue that is so big,
yeah,
the the trauma is so huge. You can't tackle this in one shot. You have to go slowly, bit by bit, And I think that's the approach that we use in order to create all these materials
yeah.
in the past, small videos, small books, workshops in the schools, and things like that, creating some books for educational purposes and videos that some survivors are willing to expose, with no shame, but with dignity and proud, to survive to so such trauma. And that's the thing that the legacy of hope was meant to do. That's the purpose of the legacy. It is to carry on the trauma by educating people. That's the heart. That's the soul of the legacy. Education at large.
Right.
If we can have all the population in Canada be aware of this, we will have been achieving one of our goals. Still today, there are some people in my region here didn't believe such school exists 30 kilometers north of here. And that place was used to abuse kids. I still met some people that they're not aware of that here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an education for me to carry on. I use other means to do that. Legacy of Hope, with the people that they were involved at the beginning, did a pretty good job. I'm very thankful for them for that. It took a lot of compassion, in order to work like that. I know there were some difficulties sometimes. Relationship are sometimes very, very rough, very tough to endure. But even we still manage to cope with that and be able to produce nice works, nice things that people should be and must be reading.
This next question is about part of what we do at the Legacy of Hope Foundation, and part of what we try and do, as you stated, education and promoting awareness about things that happened to Aboriginal people. This question is about reconciliation. Do you have a message to Canadians about reconciliation and how we can make our country a better place for everyone?
I think I'm repeating. I feel that I repeat this thing very often. Do small things, go to activities, cultural activities that each community is having here and now, like the powwows. Powwows it's an open door. It's a big opening. Both doors are open to go there and talk to the people. Talking to the people, it's just to make contact, not necessarily to ask questions, but just to say that I guess, to hang around with those activities. There are all kinds of activities that happen in this country. They are big, they are small, and they are medium. They should go into these things. Like every year and then we have the National Aboriginal Day. That's the thing that those people should attend, to see how beautiful we are.
June 21st. Yeah.
I have a story. Oh, this is a story we should apply to them. It's at the beginning, okay? I try to make it short, but sometimes it's a misunderstanding. But when Christopher Columbus came here at the first time, he came with criminals, and they stick around for a while, and they were treated very well, generosity, hospitality, all these things, and then they have to go back. And sometimes those people, when they get back, over there, they're questioning them. Said, what do you see over there? What did you find over there? But those people, they were not educated people when they travel with Christopher Columbus here. They were people that they were not able to read or to write their own language. But one of the people that one man knew how to write, but he write Latin. And he was in jail, he write Los in Dios. In Latin, it means, in French, les enfants de Dieu. Translating, it's the children of God. And they were talking about us.
Wow.
So they call it in French, les Indiens.
Yeah.
In French, it's still Indien. And in English, the Indians. Indians in Latin mean children of God.
Wow, didn't know that. Amazing.
That's why I'm stick to that word, I'm not an Aboriginal, I'm an Indian. And even in French, you say, je suis un Indien. Remember that.
Excellent.
That was the only way that this guy was able to express what he saw here in our territory.
Richard, the last part of our podcast, Roots and Hoots, is the hoots part, meaning something funny. We've talked a lot about your roots and where you've been, what you've done. And do you have we like to close this podcast off with a funny story. I'm sure you have one or two up your sleeve.
Well,
that you could share with us.
I always say that the first gift that the Creator was giving us to the Anishinaabe was the sense of humor. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
If you don't have a sense of humor, you're going to become mean and you're not happy.
Well, thank you, Richard. I want to really express my sincere appreciation on behalf of the Legacy of Hope Foundation, which you are a major part of. And I want to thank you for taking this time to do this podcast with us. And I'm sure our audience, the people that are listening to this podcast, are going to find most of or all of what you have to say quite fascinating. We all appreciate the time and effort you put into the Legacy of Hope Foundation, and we certainly look forward you joining us. We're not exactly sure when it's going to take place, but our 20th anniversary, the Legacy of Hope Foundation, is this year. So I understand there's some things planned, but with this pandemic, Corona-19 virus going around, it kind of limits a lot of stuff that we can do, you know. So I'm sure that some of the plans we have had to change because of it. But we'll keep tabs. We'll keep tabs. We'll let you know what's going to be happening. And I really want to thank you again. Appreciate the time you've taken to do this podcast. Ejinagosi, miigwech.
Roots and Hoots is produced by the Legacy of Hope Foundation. For more podcasts like this, please visit our website at legacyofhope.ca.